Macht die Hausaufgaben, arbeitet schneller, geht doch bitte nach Hause. Let's talk about the German imperative in the plural form. Hallo and welcome back to your German teacher. In case we haven't met, guten Tag, ich heiße Luzi, my name is Luzi. And in the last video about imperative, we have already one video. We talked about the formal imperative, informal imperative, and when to use it. Everything in singular. If you haven't watched this video, you can find a link down in the description. But now we just talk about plural. And keep in mind, when you use the imperative plural, you always talk to a group of people, or at least two people. Alright, so we do have, of course, a formal, die Sie-Form, a formal imperative, and a informal imperative in singular and in plural. Now, let's look at this more in detail. When we just look at the formal one, Formell, in singular, for example, gehen Sie. Gehen Sie in plural, this one in plural is also gehen Sie. It's exactly the same thing. So again, formal imperative is in singular and in plural, it's the same thing. Therefore, we don't have to concentrate on the formal one, but the informal one, for example, in singular is geh, and in plural it would be geht, geht. So you can see this is not the same thing. Let's see how to form this. Again, you take the present tense conjugation of any verb. Any verb is fine. In this case, we have trinken. Trinken is to drink. And what you have to focus on is the second person plural conjugation. Also, ihr trinkt. And then what you do, you drop this ihr, you drop the pronoun, and you put the verb at the beginning. This is important. Every imperative sentence you start with the verb. So, for example, it would be trinkt die Milch, drink the milk. And because there is this T at the end of the verb, you know that this is a plural imperative. For example, the mom tells her kids, trinkt die Milch. Now, let's look at a couple more verbs. We're gonna do this together. You can practice along with me, for example, a regular verb. Machen. Machen, second person plural conjugation in present tense is ihr macht. Ihr macht. Drop this ihr and you have the imperative. Oder warten. Warten heißt to wait. Ihr wartet. Ihr wartet. Imperativ ist auch wartet. Oder studieren. Studieren, to study. Ihr studiert. Ihr studiert. Und Imperativ ist auch studiert. Geben, a irregular verb, geben, ihr gebt, Imperativ ist auch gebt. Und dann haben wir noch fahren. Fahren ist auch ein unregelmäßiges Verb. Ihr fahrt, Imperativ ist auch fahrt. So here you can see that it doesn't matter if it's a regular verb, it's an irregular verb, a verb with ihren or whatever. In imperative plural, it's always the second person conjugation, present tense. That's important. Even also for these three auxiliary verbs, which are usually always irregular, sein. So when you conjugate it, wir sind, ihr seid. Ihr seid, present tense conjugation. Imperative is also seid. Zum Beispiel, seid nett, be nice. Oder haben, das Verb haben, ihr habt, habt Geduld, be patient. Oder das Verb werden, ihr werdet, Imperativ ist auch werdet. Zum Beispiel werdet seriös, get serious. Now, 3 examples. I'm going to give you 3 kleine Beispiele. We start with German class, your German teacher, no, this one here on this picture, this teacher woman, and she says, macht bitte die Hausaufgaben. Macht bitte die Hausaufgaben. a normal imperative sentence. But you see, I added this bitte, and whenever you add this bitte, it's not an order, it's more like a request. So you ask somebody to do something. And this is perfectly fine. Huh? Macht bitte die Hausaufgaben. Please do the homework. Now let's look at this here. Das ist der Boss, der Chef. And he is not so amused. And he is saying, arbeitet schneller. Arbeitet schneller. Work faster. There's no bitte, no other word, anything. So this is definitely an order. Also, of course, when you look at his facial expression. Und das dritte Beispiel, that's this woman here, and she invited some friends over to her place, but they just don't want to go home, and she is tired, she just wants to go sleep. So she says, geht doch bitte nach Hause. Geht doch bitte nach Hause, please go home. And you see in this example here, I added this doch. And this doch is what we talk about in our bonus tip, in my bonus tip. This doch, das ist ein Partikel. It's a so-called particle, which you probably have seen in many other sentences as well. It's a quite common one. But when you use an imperative sentence and you add this doch, then you give an advice. This is a sign for giving an advice. It sounds less harsh, and so it's used for giving advice. It sounds less harsh, and it's not impolite, and this is important. So whenever you want to give a friend of yours, for example, an advice, then we often use imperative because it's short and clean, but you have to add this doch. This is important. If you don't add this doch, then it sounds more like an order. So whenever you give an advice, use imperative, but add doch. Zum Beispiel the sentence, lernt jeden Tag 5 neue Wörter. Lernt jeden Tag 5 neue Wörter, a normal imperative sentence in plural. Huh? Lernt, that's you guys. It depends how I say it. I can say it in a strong way, or I can say it normally, then it's maybe an advice, maybe not sure. But if you add this doch, lernt doch jeden Tag 5 neue Wörter, then it's definitely an advice, and it's a nice way to say it. In English, you probably would translate this something like, why don't you learn 5 new words every day? And so this doch is more like, why don't you? So it's giving an advice. At the end, it's your decision, but my advice is you should learn 5 new words every day, which is actually a very good advice. Gut, Hausaufgaben, ihr habt auch noch Hausaufgaben. And now we, Johannes and me, we want you to tell us what we have to do. Not in an order. Huh? Don't give us any orders. We don't like orders, but in a nice way, you can add bitte, or you can add this doch to giving us an advice. Any kind of feedback using Imperativ Plural. For example, you could say, sprecht bitte lauter. Sprecht bitte lauter. Speak louder, please. Maybe our volume is not loud enough. Then you can write something like this. Or you can say, schreibt doch ein Textbuch, ein Kursbuch. Schreibt doch ein Kursbuch. Why don't you guys write a textbook? Oder macht bitte ein Video über bla bla bla. Please do a video, make a video about whatever topic you want. Alright, and now the next video is about Imperativ für trennbare Verben und reflexive Verben. Separable verbs and reflexive verbs. And there you can watch this video right here. I hope you learned something. I hope you liked this video. And of course, I hope to see you soon in one of our next videos. Until then, auf Wiedersehen, tschüss und bye bye.